Good morning and welcome to another video that we are going to be doing. One of those food for thought things, explaining what the scriptures are talking about and the context of everything. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about the beginning of the church. Now, we're not going to jump into a deep study of this, but I wanted to get sort of the basics of where we're coming from. A couple prophecies that are talking about the beginning of the church, as well as the fulfillment of those prophecies. So, if you will join me, we're going to start in Isaiah chapter 2. We're going to start in Isaiah chapter 2. Starting in verse 1, it says, "The word that Isaiah the son of Amoz saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem, and it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it." Well, let's stop right here in verse 2. The Lord's house. We're talking about the church that shall be established. He said, the Lord's house shall be established. We're talking about the church. Where? In the top of the mountains. We're talking about Jerusalem at that location. And all nations shall flow unto it. That they're going to worship there. And he says, "Many people shall go and say, Come ye, let us go up to the mountain of the house of the Lord, or mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem." It's going to be established there, and the word's going to go forth from there. And then he says, "And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn any more, or war any more. O house of Jacob, come ye, let us walk in the light of the Lord." So we're going to go ahead and stop right here. The start of chapter 2, what it's talking about is the beginning of the church. The Lord's church is going to be established. Now there's a few different things that go along with this as well, that happen at the time of the establishment. Let's look at Joel chapter 2. Joel chapter 2, and this one actually ties to Acts chapter 2 as well, where we have the beginning of the Lord's church. Joel chapter 2. He says, and it came to pass, starting in verse 28, afterward, that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your old men shall dream dreams, and your young men shall see visions. And also upon the servants and upon the handmaids in those days will I pour out my spirit, and I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. And the sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before the great and the terrible day of the Lord come. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be delivered." Now we're going to stop there in that verse, because that verse or that section ties directly to Acts chapter 2 in verses 17 through 21. It's the prophecy that's being explained here being fulfilled at that time. Now, let's see. What I'm trying to think of is the beginning of the church. We've been talking about the beginning of the church, the prophecies coming to pass, and here's another part where Christ explains that I will build my church. Let's go to Matthew chapter 16. Matthew chapter 16. Let's see. In verse 13, he says, "And when Jesus came into the coast of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, Whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? And they said, Some say, that thou art John the Baptist, and some say Elias, and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. He saith unto them, But whom say ye that I am? Who do you believe that I am? And Simon Peter answered and said, Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered and said unto him, Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. It's been revealed by the Father that this is the fact. And I say unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church. Christ is going to build his church. We have the prophecies in the Old Testament, in Isaiah and Joel and others. And now Christ is telling him, I'm going to build my church. On what? On the foundation of the confession that he's just made. That he is Christ. He is the Son of the living God. Now, there will be some who will say that he's building it on Peter. He's building it on Peter because of his name. The Peter, his name, Petros, it means pebble. But the word for rock here, he's not using the same word. He's not using the same word, so we can't say that he's building it on Peter. He's building it on the foundation of the confession that Christ is the Son of God, and that he is who he says he is, and he's going to fulfill the promise. So going from here, knowing that Christ is going to build his church, he's going to build his church, let's jump over to Acts chapter 2. Let's jump over to Acts chapter 2. And in Acts chapter 2, we're going to look at starting in verse 16. I know I've said verse 17, but we're going to start in verse 16 because it explains that it is from the prophet Joel. It says, But this was that which was spoken by the prophet Joel. And it came to pass that in the last days, saith God, I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. And on my servants and on my handmaidens will I pour out in those days of my spirit, and they shall prophesy. And I will show wonders in heaven above, and signs in the earth beneath, blood and fire and vapor and smoke. And the sun shall be turned to darkness, and the moon into blood, there before the great and notable day of the Lord. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be saved. Now, next time we're gonna take a look at the calling on the name of the Lord, but right now we're gonna focus on the church and what the church is. Christ died to build his church. He came to this earth to build his church and to die for our sins. And his body, that is what the church is. It was built by him. It's his body, his church, and we are a part of it. If we become Christians, we are a part of that. It says in Ephesians chapter 1, verses 22 and 23, And hath put all things under his feet, talking about Christ, and gave him to be the head over all things to the church, which is his body, the fullness of him that filleth all in all. It was prophesied before, long before it ever happened, and it came to pass, and Christ is the head of it. That is why we serve him. That is why we serve Christ. That's why we serve God, because he created all things, and he provided a way for us to have salvation. So, thank you so much for joining us in this video. If you have any questions, please leave us those questions on the Facebook, and we will get those answered. We'd love to see you at services. Sunday morning, we start at 9:45, and we with the Bible class, the Bible study, and we will start worship at about 10:30, and then lunch, and then worship right after that. We also have a Bible study every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock p.m. Thank you so much for listening, and may God bless you.